So after my paddle yesterday, I was very curious about why the lake was so clear right now, and I just immediately thought it was due to the high level of rain and snowfall that we had over this winter. But I was definitely wrong in this thinking, and so that got me to do a little bit more research and found out a lot more about, which is what I'm going to explain in this video. Now, to be clear, I am not a geologist. I am not an expert in the area, so take things with a grain of salt, but I hope you enjoy this little video that I've put together about why Lake Tahoe is so clear. So one of the first reasons why the lake remains so clear is that the surrounding area of Lake Tahoe is largely made up of granite. And so with granite bedrock, as water runs through the mountains down into the streams and tributaries that lead to marshes, which we'll get to later, these streams with the granite bedrock do not pick up a lot of sediment as they exit into the lake, therefore leaving the lake with less sediment. With less sediment, there's less nutrients, and with less nutrients, there are less likely to be algae blooms as that fills into the lake. Alright, so the next source of filtration are marshes. So as many of the streams and creeks exit into and around Lake Tahoe, they have an entry point of a marsh. And the marshes are highly effective at filtering a lot of the sediment before these streams and creeks exit into Lake Tahoe. So here, as you can see in this video, this is the Taylor Creek area and the marsh before you enter into Lake Tahoe. Now, one of the other bigger environmental changes that has happened in the Tahoe region, which has negatively impacted the clarity of the lake, is the development of the Keys, which holds a lot of debate, is the best way to put it, probably within and around the Tahoe region. All right, so a little bit further about the Tahoe Keys. As I bring this up on the screen, we'll come into the Tahoe Keys from Google Earth, and we'll have a closer look. So again, this is on the south end of the lake. You can see this was built, I believe, back in the 1950s or 60s. I'll double check that, but this was basically a canal system that was built in here for housing developments for people to have easy access with their boats into Lake Tahoe. Now, where we were just showing Taylor Creek, this is a marsh system that sits here as the exit point from Fallen Leaf Lake into Lake Tahoe. So this whole area is kind of a marshland, if you will, that does a really effective job at filtering the sediment. But basically there's this meandering stream through here called the North Upper Truckee, and right now it's more than just a meandering stream. It's picked up quite a bit. But you can kind of see that the size of the marsh has decreased significantly. What used to be this whole area through here as a marshland to try to filter that water has now been reduced at least in half, if not more, to this area. And there's been multiple restoration projects that have been, basically they've been working on to try to improve the filtration and improve the lake water quality. Now, this also brings up another problem because of the shallow depth in through this area that has started to have some issues with invasive aquatic plants and invasive fish species like smallmouth bass, largemouth bass, and panfish, as far as I'm aware. So one other thing that plays to Lake Tahoe's advantage is the size and the depth of the lake. So with a very large sized lake, whenever we get any natural rainfall, snowfall, a large part of the falling precipitation falls directly into the lake, therefore limiting the runoff and sedimentation going into the lake. The other thing that is very helpful is the depth of the lake at an average depth of 1,000 feet with the deepest point of 1,645 feet. The lake is naturally cold, which helps to kind of avoid some of the algae blooms and other things that would decrease the lake quality. And that kind of brings us to today, like why today is the lake quality improving so much? And it comes back down to a couple smaller species that are within the lake. They brought back in the 1960s a mysis shrimp into the lake to try to help feed the trout to keep them strong and healthy. But what they ultimately ended up finding is that these shrimp actually killed off other small zooplankton, which were helpful in basically keeping the water quality really high. And when these shrimp came in, they started to grow in numbers. They killed off the zooplankton, and the zooplankton were then unable to filter the water. Now, they had thought that the local fish species, a lot of the trout in the area, would be eating these mysis shrimp, but ultimately they didn't take into account that the mysis shrimp had a hatred for light. So basically, these species in the depths of the lake were living at a much deeper level than where the trout would be. So ultimately the trout and other fish species of Lake Tahoe were not keeping the mysis shrimp population under control. Now, as of more recently, they've seen a decline in the mysis shrimp and an incline or increase in the number of the zooplankton, which then has ultimately led to a higher filtration capability of this species, which is why we've likely seen this increase in water clarity. And so researchers aren't sure why the mysis shrimp have been getting killed off, but they expect probably 2 to 3 years with a lower population of these shrimp, which will hopefully keep the clarity high for the next couple of years for sure. I hope you guys like this new style of video and something that's a little bit more informative and educational. I enjoy doing this type of stuff. We like learning more about the area ourselves, and so I'm hoping to plan to do one of these maybe once every 2 weeks of some more historical or educational videos from around Lake Tahoe. So we'll bring you along. So again, I want to just be very clear that I am not an expert. I know probably with regards to some of the last talks about the mysis shrimp and the local fish in Lake Tahoe, that I'm missing a whole bunch of things about the local food chain and how that all works. But hopefully this gives you a very, very basic understanding of how it all works.